Human nature in literature. Naturally, since great technological advancements were made prior to and during the Victorian era, many explorations into human nature were made through literature. Two such examples I will be discussing are Frankenstein by Mary Shelley and The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde by Robert Louis Stevenson. A more modern example is Lord of the Flies by William Golding. They all present very different views on the issue. Frankenstein utilizes a frame narrative and follows a scientist obsessed with generating life, consequently stitching together an unnatural man from the appendages of the desecrated dead. However, the horrification Frankenstein experiences causes him to leave his creation at its so-called birth. It is effectively a child in a man's body, with no worldly knowledge and prejudiced notions. This is paramount in portraying Shelley's perspective, similar to a generic romantic view that man is born innately pure and virtuous. As the child ventures into the world, it is received with similar reactions to that of its creator, disgust and terror. Consequently, it is embittered to the world, going on a vengeful quest against Frankenstein, haunting him and eventually murdering his wife. This reinforces the view that man is born good and is tainted by society, having an effect on developing children. This is somewhat evident in young children who are initially friendly and attentive, to be replaced by the questioning and often competitive teenager. Lord of the Flies, on the other hand, strands a group of young boys on an island with no adult supervision or evidence of society. While they initially attempt to forge a civilization with rules and order, they eventually succumb to their inner evils, physically manifested in a beheaded sow's head, violently jammed onto a stick, which attracts swarms of flies, hence the title. It ultimately describes the tale of how, as their grip on reality slips, the boys lose their inhibitions and are free to be that which they were born to be, savages. They become animalistic, hunting, using primeval cries and building sacrificial fires, climaxing with the murder of those who stand in their way of their innate selves. Notably, Golding uses romantic ideal to portray his viewpoint. Civilization and man corrupts the natural beauty of the island by quite literally scarring the forest with the crashed fuselage of the plane, and the boys conclude the novel by igniting an inferno on the island to simply exact their primitive aggression and hunting one remaining foe. Therefore, a direct contrast is established between Shelley and Golding, arguing for and against the case that man is innately evil. While it may seem that these two perspectives encapsulate the spectrum, Robert Louis Stevenson offers an alternative with The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. It tells the story of a well-respected and successful gentleman who meddles in a dangerous part of science, dividing his personality into two physical manifestations, his public Dr. Jekyll and his monstrous alter ego, Mr. Hyde. Described in a demonic fashion, Mr. Hyde goes on to commit atrocities such as murder, forcing Dr. Jekyll to become increasingly reclusive in an attempt to suppress Mr. Hyde. Despite his best efforts, the novel ends with the absolute repression of Dr. Jekyll in favour of Mr. Hyde, and the subsequent suicide of Hyde to avoid criminal prosecution. Ultimately, Stevenson in conveying that, to quote, "Man is not truly one, but truly two," to suggest that man is neither good nor evil, but that he has capacity for both within the same personality. There are no real conclusions I can draw from these points being made about this literature, other than the fact that there are differing opinions on the matter. I just hope that someone will find this constructive and helpful in a very broad and general sense. The usual disclaimer type deal going on now. This is just my opinion, and it doesn't necessarily mean anything. Hope you enjoyed.